Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. First of all, thank you very much for coming on a very short notice. I thank you on behalf of Ummatics. A lot of you are already regular attendees of our seminars and meetups in Istanbul, so you do have an idea of what Ummatics is working towards. We had this opportunity, Brother Amanullah, who's a very known face on the social media, especially those of you who know like Eon Podcast, the platform. So he's doing tremendous work, and we just wanted to benefit from his experience, and he wanted to interact with the diverse audience or participants which we have got in Nomadics. So that's the reason we bothered you all. So Jazakallah khair for honoring us with coming. Obviously, I shared the topic with you for discussion. It's going to be an interactive discussion. It's not like a lecture-like thing. But just to make sure, because we do have many perspectives and very learned people across the table. We have brothers from East Turkestan, from Misr. A couple of them are coming, from Tunisia, from Pakistan, mashallah, and also the Turkish perspective because we are living here. So probably it would be better if we steer direction in a specific way, and we do have a general guideline about it. So I was just thinking, because I think it's a very contemporary issue, which is that obviously, if not all of us, most of us, we do have this sentiment of reinvigorating the ummah, or this unity thing which was there in the beginning of ummah, this prophetic ummah, or this ummah that we are all part of. But somehow that thing has been lost. All of us are willing to reinvigorate that, but what is the way towards it? Obviously, everybody has a different solution for that. And a large part of it is today, which deals with media. So, without further ado, I think it would be a good thing if we can steer this discussion towards what is the role of media in building and undermining the ummatic sentiments, and in specific social media. And probably since Brother Amanullah is somebody who's an expert on it, and he's directly dealing with this, and I mean, obviously, I congratulate him. We appreciate his efforts for that, his team's efforts. But probably if you could start the discussion with how we could do it, then inshallah we'll have a contribution from everybody.
Inshallah. Anyone who wants to speak can just hold the mic, I guess. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for having me over here, Al-Khidmat for the office, Omatics for the invite, and everyone for showing up, the Uyghur brothers, the Egyptian brothers, and I'm sorry, where are you from? Where are you from again?
Hyderabad.
Right, the Indian brothers as well. The thing with, I think the framework is laid out in front of us. I don't think we should spend a lot of time beating around the bush. I think social media has been most effectively used by the global left. They have been the most successful, I think, in terms of movements that are not mainstream, and they have made themselves mainstream. They have latched on to every single conflict, whether that be Palestine or Sudan or wherever. They have been able to gain political capital. They have been able to sway people's hearts and minds. And they have been able to be on the quote-unquote right side of history in terms of the general public's perception. I think the first sort of major mistake they've made in the last 30, 40 years, I think, has been Syria, perhaps. That has been a bit embarrassing for them. But my point is that it's an effective model to understand how our idea coming across different parts of the world about greater ummatic cooperation has to be conveyed effectively. There is an existing model that the global left has used, for example. I still do work with some journalists who are part of the axis of resistance or leftists or whatever you want to call them. I work with them for professional engagements. I think their model has been very effective. They have taken an international approach. They have taken full leverage of their privilege of citizenship or whatever it is. If they're in America or Canada or Europe or in Turkey, they use these to leverage it for greater global causes. I think, unfortunately, the Muslim media landscape has been very nationalistic in its focus or cultural in its focus. So the Arab media is limited to the Middle East. TRT, for example, has tried to be a bit more global, but again, at the end of the day, it's limited to this region. Pakistani media is not consumed outside of the Urdu Hindi landscape, even though we're a billion people in the Indian Muslim as well as the Pakistani Muslim, we're roughly a billion people. But the Urdu Hindi landscape is very limiting to just that region and our diaspora. I think English is unfortunately or fortunately a lingua franca. I know the Umatics have this approach as well, where they do view English as. I think it is. I think we should respect the fact that from Allah, we have accidentally stumbled into this, that the whole Ummah practically speaks English at this point. And that is an advantage coupled with social media access, that we can speak to each other. The distinguishment between national interests or ethnic interests and global ummatic interests has been something that I think we haven't been able to resolve on media. Syria is the prime example, I think. Palestine was, I think, a bit of a moot point in the sense of you couldn't really oppose the idea of a Palestine as a Muslim. Your identity as a Muslim would have been challenged on the media platforms. Syria has been something that has immediately, I think, highlighted the Shia-Sunni split as well as geopolitical splits. Because then the question comes up of why don't the Syrians do something about Palestine and so on and so forth. Similarly, I think Turkestan, because the brothers from Turkestan are here, the distinguishment between Pakistani foreign policy, Pakistani domestic policy, and what the Turkestani people want. This is a big, you know what I mean? I think we haven't been able to communicate these things effectively. I think the best approach is the human story. A lot of the Muslim ummatic level media reporting is very grand narrative based about how if move X happens, then move Y will happen, and then Z will happen, and this is how we'll achieve ABC. I think if we focus on human stories, which is what we're trying to do on our platforms. So, for example, the idea of a Turkestan wouldn't be in Pakistani interest at all. But at least the way we've set ourselves up right now. But I think what is important for Muslims in Pakistan to hear is the human perspective of Turkestan, not the geopolitics of it, not the border and economic benefits of it. They need to hear directly from their Muslim brothers and sisters, and they need to hear them in a language which they understand, which I think is English is a good, like I mentioned earlier, and they need to be able to. So, for example, I think Palestine, for a lot of these countries and their populations, has been something that they can all associate with because there's no foreign policy implications very directly involved. So Pakistanis can support Palestine without having to deal with the consequences of that cause on a very large scale. On a minor scale, they may, or maybe your social media is banned, or maybe you don't get a visa for a certain country, or maybe you're kicked out of a college or whatever. But there's no real dire consequences. But then as things keep getting closer to home, they will start to have serious consequences. And I think the way to tackle that ummatic approach is to highlight human stories. Let's not make it about the politics of it, about the economics of it, what Pakistan wants, what some other country wants, and make it about what is actually happening on ground to your Muslim brothers and sisters. What do they have to deal with? That's our approach for the ummatic awareness. I think we should stop appealing to which not entirely obviously, but in terms of the media approach. I mean, you guys are the academics. You guys are doing research and working on lobbying efforts and activism. But I think in terms of media approach, we should just speak about the human cost, because that is what can cut through propaganda coming from the state, propaganda coming from NATO, propaganda coming in from Russia or China or wherever. Yeah, and there's a lot of big powers in the world. I think the human story cuts through. It's something that appeals to people. And if English is the medium of exchange, then so be it. Let it be English. That's my whole 2 cents on the media landscape of the ummatic approach.
No, thank you, Ahmed. That's very enlightening. So I think we can open up the discussion. And obviously, I would not want to be, I don't want to make it very, what do you call it, like, repetitive. So instead of me saying something, I think somebody among you wants to expand the discussion further.
Just hold the mic.
Yeah. Okay.
So, I work in social media and digital marketing. I work as an account manager. So, actually, if we will go back to Islam to understand how to deal with the Ummah concept, and then how to deal with it on media level or in politics level or whatever. So in all the levels, I mean. So Prophet Muhammad, he has a guy just for propaganda, just for poetry, just to answer the propaganda and the media of kafirs, of Quraysh, of all of the people against him. So, and he was, they had beefs together. He was like, diss them, hija in Arabic. And it was actual disses. It was like, this man, he can't hold the sword and he's coming to fight us. We are the originals of the Arabs and we are like having the best families. We have like the best position and we are calling for manners. He is calling for drinking. And so they were doing this. They were actually doing this. It was not like an angelic fighting against the evils. And no, if they use a sword, we use a sword. If they use a word, we use a word. So I totally support the idea of like using the humanitarian idea or the human side of the miseries our brothers and sisters everywhere are using, are having. Like, let's say in Syria, for example, the lefties, they were supporting some stories from Syria because they wanted it to be a clashback of Palestine. So if you are supporting Palestine,
Yes.
you will find someone directly in the comments asking you why you are not supporting Syria. And if you are supporting the revolutionaries in Syria or the Syrians people, which was like very hard to have a stand in Syria without being attacked, being Shia or being Sunnah. So if you try to support the people in Syria, the revolutionaries or the normal people, if you will say the revolutionaries and the regime both are bad, and I'm feeling sorry for the people of Syria, they will be what? They will be like, are you Israeli? Are you trying to stop against the what they call the axis of the resistance? Are you trying just say it? Do you hate the Palestinians? I was like, hey guys, no, I like them both, but like I'm sorry for them both. No, it was not possible. So till we start to make some propaganda, some campaigns about the blood and the concept of Idlib, the concept of Gaza, the concept of some cities in Syria and what they had, and some cities in Palestine and what they had. And then we try to connect the stories with a humanitarian way. We are not saying that dropping the religious part or dropping the political part or the economic part, but we are saying that if I'm talking to you in an intellectual speaking, I will talk to you about politics and economy and informations. But if I'm talking to you while you are sleeping at night, laying down and scrolling on reels, I'm not going to put numbers in it. I'm going to put tears and emotions to make you wake up, to make you feel something. And then these feelings you will have, it will make you next morning, you will start to fight back the propaganda that have been telling to you. It's like all the Palestinians should die. Yeah, but not this way at least. Not this aggressive. Like, why do we kill them with bombs? Why with bullets? Why we don't just like kick them out? If we make someone he's totally pro-Israeli, moving from this step of the totally support to start to have doubts, that's it. That's what Dawah makes. To talk with everyone with what he needs to hear, with what is effective with him. Amr bil ma'ruf and nahi an munkar, like telling for the good and providing the bad or the sins. It doesn't work with like, hey man, you are drunk in the bar. Do you know that khamra is haram? Do you know that drinking is haram? I was like, he is drunk. I was like, thank you, he is drunk. But waiting till he's awake, being nice to him, give him a cup of coffee for the hangover effect, and then like, hey man, why do you do this to your life? Just try to be better. He's not Muslim, maybe. He's not Muslim at all, but try to be better. And then this getting better process is what he will take to him. So media needs to be played with the algorithm, needs to be played with what they made, to make their machine attacks them by their tactics.
Yeah, I totally agree with you that as far as the ridiculing is concerned, to cut propaganda, we do that. We do two things. So, when speaking to Muslims and within the in group, the with the larger in group, which is Muslims, it's about the emotionality and the humanity of it. But when replying to the propaganda, so for example, unfortunately, Osama will know all about this. There's a lot of propaganda coming out of India in support of in support of Israel, because there's a Hindu nationalism and Zionist connection that goes all the way back to the 1930s and 40s. When responding to that, we don't take a serious tone. We don't intellectually. We just make fun of it. That's been the number one most effective tool to break it down, is to ridicule it and to make fun of it. And yani, the brothers here will know that the one thing that hurts China the most is Winnie the Pooh. It's not, it's nothing else. In these kinds of matters where, these tyrants, these very tyrannical regimes take themselves very seriously, they can't take humor, they can't take ridicule, like you mentioned with Zayd ibn Sabit and with the Sahaba writing, humorous poetry against the opponents of Islam. So we do use humor, especially with India and Israel, where India and Israel are concerned. But like you mentioned, a lot of the propaganda can be cut through with the emotions. You can have a crazy Zionist even look at a video and realize that, yeah, maybe we shouldn't kill these people. I totally agree with you, and I think that the reason why I also mentioned humanizing issues as opposed to presenting them as just political issues to average people is because if you present the average person with the politics of it, you can't combat the state machinery's propaganda. Their politics will be more effective. Their presentation will be more slick. But what you can do is, so for example, if the struggle of the Turkestan is something that goes against even Pakistani foreign policy, for example, if the average public is convinced of the emotional argument of what the humans of Turkestan need, of the Muslim brothers and sisters need, they're more likely to then not fall for the political angle. You get what I'm saying?
And there will be a generation of politicians. They
Who-
will come from those people.
Who will be forced to listen to
And they
them?
will
Yes.
be like, they will be nicer
Yes.
to the cause.
Yes.
Forward,
Even
the needs of
even if they can't actually do anything about it in terms of the actual foreign policy affairs, they will have a softer hand when it comes to the actual treatment of that issue. Of course, that's the idea.
the idea of a soft power. Okay. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
So the idea of a soft power that doesn't make an action right now. So this generation is not responsible to win, because we as Muslims, we are not supposed to win at anything. We are supposed to do what we need to do. And if what we need to do is to bring a generation of Pakistani politicians, they are nicer to the cause of of our brothers and sisters in Igor. So that's what we need to do. And then let them have their challenge.
Yes.
And then they will come and they will start to act very small actions, very, very small actions. Maybe they will pay less to kill, just by paying less to kill. The next generation of them, they will not pay at all. They will not obey the order of killing at all. Then the next generation, they will change a lot. And then, because now we are moving way rapidly, so it's not taking a generation to a generation, but like a young politician and then the same politician, but once he's elder, he's taken a different or more radical or more like aggressive actions. So just move it, just push it to the way that you want. And Allah will deliver your word, Allah will deliver your will if you are doing actually, like really, you are doing what you need to do.
उसामा विश्व गुरु कैसे बनेंगे?
विश्व गुरु
हाँ, कैसे बनेंगे? How to make India Vishwa Guru?
So the thing is, India already thinks that it's a superpower because most of the countries, including America, they have their economic interests in India.
Yes.
And for that reason, they don't want to take any substantial steps against all the human rights abuses or anything that's happening in India, whether it's against Muslims or Dalits or Christians or Sikhs or anyone else. And unfortunately, that's how the world order is set up, that whichever country can benefit the world superpowers economically, they wouldn't do anything against that country. Yeah. So I just had a few brief points to add. So first thing is that I thought about when you mentioned we have to highlight humanitarian stories and focus more on humanitarianism. Is एक चीज़ ये है कि the left doesn't own humanitarianism and what is haqq and what's justice. It's a Muslim thing. You know, Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, before he even became a prophet, he had Hilful Fudul, which was a community for the sake of society. So it is something that we have to reclaim from the left. And it would be a very big move on the Muslim media side. I don't know why it hasn't happened yet. We should highlight the stories of non-Muslims who are being oppressed. And
I think the most effective thing that we've had is Al Jazeera, where Al Jazeera has had a principal position to cover all conflicts and struggles in the global south. I think that was a good idea in principle. But there is there's a problem of that, we're not allowed to play with the big boys. So you do see the left as well as the mainstream sort of conservative Western population. Al Jazeera is being cornered now. It is being sort of sidelined and separated, and it might get the RT treatment. So informal or I guess smaller, amateur productions like social media productions or an institution, we also have to, I think, combat imperial sort of infrastructure in the general global south, the same as we would in the Muslim world, because I think in our own colonization, we have lost that sort of element of being concerned for our fellow man.
Yeah. So Alhamdulillah, because of the rise of social media, the dissemination of information has decentralized, and it has, put everyone on an equal footing. So now a kid sitting in, I don't know, Konya, he can take a phone and he can start making videos and he can become a big, news YouTuber. And that's possible now. And because of this as well, because of English, there has been a unification of the Ummah, at least in terms of information. So now anything happens in Kashmir, people in the US know about it. Something happens to Muslims in Russia, people in Egypt know about it. So there has been this unification. So I think we should focus on organizing this and making it more systematic. And going back to the point of talking about non-Muslim issues, I think we should also be including things happening in the global north. For example, if there is a housing crisis happening in the US, we should blow it out. If there is, Americans don't have proper healthcare. Even healthcare that we have in Turkey, they don't have that in America. So we should take this.
Pakistani healthcare is pretty decent, by
Our
the way.
situation is way better.
Alhamdulillah. In terms of
Even with now.
in terms of education affordability, we have certain things in Turkey, in Qatar, in the Gulf countries that they don't have in the US. I think we should take these stories. And for example, San Francisco is called the poop city, poop capital of the world, because people are always, they're pooping on the streets. You have a massive drug problem. You have people.
I think poop capital probably Bombay can take it.
Yeah.
I think Delhi is a bigger.
You think?
I think Delhi is more poopy than Bombay, but it's
Really? I've been to both, but I thought Bombay was kind of poopier than Delhi.
Bombay is urine.
It's more
of a urine place.
Yeah.
It's more of a urine place. Like if you walk through, because there's also the humidity.
Why do you feel like you're not going to publish it?
No, I am. We have already.
This conversation.
No, because Alhamdulillah, I'm from Hyderabad, and Hyderabad is the cleanest and the safest city in India. So when we go to other cities in India, we feel like, what is this? Is this a real civilization? Is this a real city even? Because for us it feels like we're in a completely different scenario. So going back to San Francisco, so there are many stories in the West. I think TRT.
This is my issue with the highlighting of Western problems. I feel like it's some of it when we do these kinds of stories, when mainstream Al Jazeera or one of these platforms does these kind of stories, I feel like it's the pot calling the kettle black. I feel like there's a bit of a hypocrisy when we do these kinds of stories. In the Muslim world, we have really poor conditions, infrastructure, whether it be infrastructure, civil liberties, law and order, and so on and so forth. I understand the material benefit of highlighting these problems in the Western world to point out principal inconsistencies, to point out moral inconsistency, and I'm fine with that. I feel like there's a very thin line when it goes into DEI type stuff, into sort of like bashing Western civilization for the sake of bashing Western civilization, which I don't think is correct, because I do think that as Muslims, our relationship with Western civilization is a brotherly one, and something I think outside of ourselves is the closest civilization to us. So I think that there is a very careful positioning that must be done, where sometimes we are careless and criticize things about Westerns. So, for example, like you said, the left does not have a dominance, ownership over humanitarian issues. It has, and that domination has even entered our psyches. So, for example, imperialism, colonization, and the criticism of some of those historical events coming from Western Europe, because that narrative is controlled by the left, our criticism of Western Europe is also informed by that of the left. So, our language for criticizing the West can sometimes be hypocritical, because some of those things we believe in. Some of those ideas that they were perpetrating, and some of the imperial efforts that Western Europe made, I'm not fully convinced were completely alien to what the Muslim civilization would have done. I feel like we get carried away in our criticism of the West because of the way the left has dominated the narrative. So DEI stuff, for example, you see a lot of Muslims in powerful positions now in Western Europe, in North America, as senators or as representatives or in media. Some of that stuff is a handout. Like look at the logical extreme of that, the Indian employment narrative. That has led to a net embarrassment for India and the Indian people, because those handouts that they're getting for jobs in tech companies, India tried to posture that as, oh, we have the best tech workers or whatever. The simple truth of it was cheap labor. And now that's being exposed and India is being embarrassed for it. It's a big foreign policy fiasco, I think. Yeah. Similarly, when we lean in too much of the criticism of Western civilization or Christian civilization, I think we invite an attack on us and ourselves as an extension of Abrahamic civilization. Because the rest of the world does sort of view us as Western adjacent. In some sense, in terms of our behaviors and our foreign policy. This is a very fascinating point that came up with Brother Osama, is that our criticism of the Western colonial project or imperial project and highlighting the problems within their own infrastructure. I feel, to the point being, to point out moral inconsistencies in Western organizations and civilization. I feel like that some of that criticism, A, is either ill-informed, B, it is hypocritical, because we have those problems equally bad, if not worse, in most cases. And number 3, a lot of the criticism we're doing is not being informed by Islam. It's being informed by the left's criticism of imperialism or Western colonialism or whatever you want to call it. So our criticisms wouldn't be the same because of the principal drive that we would have. So for example, attacking another territory and occupying it, is that something we see as immoral? Not necessarily, because I mean we are not obliged to follow liberal rules-based order, or we never really bought into it. We were forced to come along. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm not saying, slavery is gone, alhamdulillah. What an excellent thing. What a nice progression for humanity. If the West had more of an effort in it, good on them. May Allah bless them for it. May Allah guide them. Similarly, how deeply do we buy into this sort of liberal narrative? Slavery, okay, I get it, but we have been an expansionary civilization, both in terms of proselytizing and in violence. So I feel like, you get what I'm saying? There's a bit of a hypocrisy in there, and I don't think it's very Muslim.
So just to push back a little on what you said.
Considering we're sitting in Istanbul, right? I just went to the Hagia Sophia and prayed, which is, you know what I mean? Yeah. For the first, I think, week when I was here, I was considering not praying in the Hagia Sophia. I said I'll pray in the other masajid, and maybe I shouldn't pray here. I felt a sort of guilt. But then eventually, obviously, I was there. It was Zohar time. You know how we are. We're a lazy people, Pakistanis. I just prayed there. But my point is, there is a grey area of history where Muslims operate as well. So I feel like some of the criticism is...
So what I wanted to say was that the criticism towards the West shouldn't be from a place of just criticizing the West for the sake of criticizing them. should be from a place of genuine concern and care for the people living there. So, for example, when there is a problem of homelessness, that is a human right to have a home. So why can't we talk about it as media that's just operating as independent media? Okay, there's a crisis of homelessness in the US, and they're more concerned about giving billions and billions of dollars to Israel when they have their own similar issues.
Sure, principal inconsistencies, like I said earlier, to point out principal or moral inconsistencies, fair. But in the isolated discussion about homelessness, I mean, look at the Muslim world.
Yes, but I'm not representing the Pakistani government or the Turkish government. I'm an independent journalist, right? So I can criticize the Pakistani government, Turkish government, and the American government.
Can you though?
I mean, not in Pakistan, maybe.
No. So I have a point in the middle in this conversation. That's yes.
Flip it around.
Yeah. Okay. So the point is, do you know why we have a homeless problem? Because they have house system. We don't have a house system, so we don't know that we have homeless people. So it's not we don't have the problems, we just don't have the system to recognize the problems, which is way worse than having the problem itself. But as Muslims, we don't try to win for ourselves. We try to win, or we try to spread the word of Allah, the word of Dawah. So what is Islam actually supports? Islam supports the efforts of humanity. So it doesn't matter who made it as human, Muslims or not. Islam will praise it. Islam will say, hey guys, this man is the correct person now in this.
That's what I'm saying. Like the ability to appreciate the Western civilization should also be, and we're benefiting from that civilization as well.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think the posturing of us as their existential enemies has been a war on terror sort of narrative. As a reaction to the war on terror, we have positioned ourselves as existential enemies to Western civilization, which I think in some senses was fair considering that 20-30 year period. But at the same time, there has been a great benefit in our interactions with Western civilization. So like the brother said, the Sheikh said that our criticism of it shouldn't be, and like you said as well, it should be based on the... So again, like you said, as a human being on humanitarian lines. Now that's a dangerous sort of, immediately, like, is your criticism of it informed by the liberal rules-based order, or is your humanitarianism coming from Islam and Islamic principles? So like, would your criticism about homelessness, let's say that's the arbitrary example, would it be based on Islam's idea of public housing in theory, or something that we practice in some parts of the Muslim world, or something that would be an ideal that you'd like,
or the general right
or
of
something
Islam of having a house,
or some European or other civilization that has achieved it? For example, maybe like a Scandinavian country, for example, arbitrarily I'm saying. We say, that's pretty good, we should do that. Would we have the point is, would we have the courage? I feel like a lot of the criticism is, it's mean-spirited. It doesn't have the courage to appreciate the good.
It's the closer to the haqq of Islam.
We should have
what we do like in criticism is like we actually become very reactionary and frustrated whenever we're doing the criticism. So what we need to do is like our goal should be like we should be more organized in all our like whatever we have to portray and whatever we have to like spread the words. And because right now the Ummah is so fragmented and we don't have a platform that discusses the same issues all around the world. So if we have like maybe an organization, it shouldn't be an organization. It can be a voluntary thing or an like we were talking about with Hassan Bhai, like the NPOs and the NGOs have a great impact on the narratives around the world. Like we talk about, when we talk about the human rights, we talk about Amnesty International and the other NGOs or NPOs. Like they have the agenda and everywhere they publish they have a publishing like we achieved this, we achieved like same-sex marriages in these countries, and like abortions.
If they set a goal, then they have objective metrics to measure it. Yeah.
So they are all around the world and they're doing their part. So in our Muslim world, we are not coalesced into a very like a force that spreads the same or similar agenda.
There's not a principal thrust for our so Al Khidmat will be doing one thing over here, Red Crescent will be doing one thing over there. there's not that centralized trust, which is a principal trust. Which is like you mentioned, that XYZ Asia, Amnesty International will say our Asia division has 1,000 transgenders now and 2,000 whatever, and that those kinds of numbers. Let's be honest, the last 50 years has been dominated by this stuff, and even in the Muslim world now, in Pakistan, I don't know, in India what the situation is. We have Aurat marches and their social reconstruction program has worked. But the thing is, the common thread here is that they had a government that backed them. American government, so generally NATO allies, backed this kind of social engineering, and they used it as a tool of, I would say, warfare in the Muslim world. Do we have the gumption, the organizational ability, or any state support to do the reverse? Yani, you could say that maybe Salafi Dawah that Saudi Arabia sponsored at one point was the reverse of that. It was that kind of a cultural restructuring or entry point for Western civilization to be introduced to Islam. It was a good thing. Like, of the things that Saudis did, one of the good things was the Dawah scene. They developed a certain presence online and on ground in Europe and in America and so on and so forth. So that would be the reverse, like, of what they did.
Yeah, I think because right now around the world we have a lot of influential Muslims around the world, and they have good voices and they can contribute. Like if we try to coalesce them into a very vigorous force, you can say, and they can do that. Because even if you say about America or the other superpowers around the world, when they're spreading some information, obviously the politicians are at the back end. There are some good businessmen, some good influential people who are doing civil society, and we can do that as well. Like in the
But what if we built 1,000 masajid and 1,000 soup kitchens and 1,000? That's what we like. That's what our civil society likes. We have to admit this as a people. I've met Arabs now. I've met Turks. Mashallah, I've met the Uyghur brothers. Muslims across the world, our shuyukh, our elders, they like to build soup kitchens. They like to build wuzu khane, kya kehte hain ye?
Ablution.
Yeah, they like building shower places.
You mean Turkish? Abdistan.
Abdistan. We like building this stuff, and it has benefited the ummah in that we're all bathed, we're all fed, we're all well fed, and we're all clean. And if we have to go to the hospital,
We will die fine.
we will die fine. If we have to go to the hospital, there's somebody to pay the zakat for our whatever, blood transfusion or whatever.
Before I start something skeptical, let's ask Abdullah. Would you like to add something?
No, it's going well, but the problem is at first you mentioned that every Muslim around the world, they are considering the very tiny ummah, not the ummah all over the world, because it's a very real problem issue.
When Arabs say ummah, they
when my
mean
people dying in the concentration camps. Sorry, I cannot talk about the people in Gaza. But we did speak something about Gaza, about another areas. But it is the real problem of the all Muslim world. That's why we, as ummatists here, I think we all of us, not the very tiny, small for the communities of our own. So we have to do something. For example, we have all Muslims have a value. Our iman, our hadaf goal. And then so we can maybe create some mutual sound of the Muslims, maybe from a humanitarian perspective or something else. That's why, as Abu Bakr mentioned, because this media, all the YouTube or all the social media, there is an algorithm. We have to always also defeat them And
Yes,
yeah, that's why we have to work very cleverly in this point. And then the brother Amanullah, someone who knows the technique. I think the technique is also very important.
I wouldn't say we're very good at the technique. We've been banned multiple times. But I think the point that you've highlighted, Brother Abdullah has highlighted, is that the scope and scale of what we think the Ummah is very limited. When we say Ummah, sometimes we mean Bilad al-Sham.
Yeah, but this goes back to your question of, when you said, ideally saying, maybe, because this is what I wanted to, I didn't want to be skeptical, but, obviously, I think we need to be very balanced between pragmatism and idealism.
Yes.
Okay. And unless we are maybe a little pragmatic, we will just be talking off ground, and we will just be tailoring stories. So when we say the geopolitics is one side, and I think I do support storytelling, right?
Yes.
And since it's not because I'm very patriotic Pakistani and I'm bringing it out, but see, the no, so no,
I will
because
sacrifice my life for Pakistan.
no, because this is a real life problem. Like Brother Abdullah
I will
has just
grow up and
mentioned.
I will destroy India.
Brother Abdullah has mentioned. See, when we need to think from Pakistani perspective, when we are talking about one position it has to take for East Turkestan, and similarly when we are analyzing the perspective of maybe Arab regimes, when it comes to Philistine, because I think I'm not blaming anyone, but honestly speaking, whenever it even comes to the movements, right? So I think if Pakistani collaboration with China is having a repercussion for Uyghurs, similarly, India sponsoring an Uyghur movement is going to have a repercussion for Hindutva and Kashmiris. So I think this goes always.
Yes,
It doesn't go one
No,
way.
I completely
So
agree with
think-
you. So this is the thing.
So this also, sorry, I'll just finish it. So I think this also on the civil society level, if it's not the governmental level, because if we think of each other as Ummah, parts of Ummah, this also needs to be coordinated effort, where we understand, okay, this brother is with me, he's Pakistani, but he feels my pain, but these are his limitations. And so the other side of the picture can be, I sitting in Pakistan, I know Zalika Azaful Iman, that I know it is bad, and I do feel bad about it, and I'm waiting for the day when I would not need China, because China would be only country in United Nations who would save me from being voted out, when all 4 others out of the 5 permanent members have voted me out already.
No, I understand your point, and I respect it completely. I think it doesn't need to be said, because those kinds of limitations are real in their implications. That Pakistan will not be able to, for example, if we're talking about the brothers, Pakistan has not been an effective ally in the recent years for the cause of East Turkestan. Similarly, you saw in Afghanistan during the war on terror, Pakistan was not able to be an effective ally. In fact, Pakistan was an opponent to Afghanistan, a free Afghanistan. It was an ally of America for whatever reason.
Depends who was Afghanistan.
Yeah.
I mean, it was. I mean, the Taliban, when you say you're fighting the Taliban, you're not really. You're fighting all of Afghanistan, really.
Because the Ghanis and others would say, you were pro-Taliban.
Subhanallah.
Yeah.
I mean, Allah knows best what we did in the last 20 years. But let's say you had a position which was as an adversarial position towards Afghanistan.
Contrary to your own previous
position and your whole population's position. Let's say you did that. In those conditions, in those circumstances, a certain mentality, I saw it in Pakistan develop, that we are distinct and separate societies. So, for example, the way Pakistani society is at large, and then obviously in microcosms in Punjab and Khyber and Balochistan and so on, it's different from Uyghur society. Yeah. It's different from Afghan or Pashtun society or Tajik society or Kyrgyz society and so on and so forth. There is a totalizing impact, I feel like, which our imperial history has had, that when we say Mughal dynasty, we mean the culture of the Mughals. Similarly, there's a totalizing idea of when we say Ottoman history, we mean Bulgaria must be Ottoman, and Transylvania must be Ottoman, and Turkey must be Ottoman, and Syria must be Ottoman. When we speak about the Kurds, we'll say they are mountain Turks, and the Arabs are desert Turks. Everyone has to be a Turk now. So that totalizing effect has an impact on our psyche. Now, due to the progress of time and the way we have split up, like with English, it is a forced colonial yani leftover, but we are reaping the benefit of this common language. Similarly, the new nation state infrastructure, it's not ideal, but what it does allow for is that you can remain as your own microcosm and still cooperate with another Muslim nation without having to change your own culture. The big fear that is drummed up is that Afghans are savages and they are different to us. And they will say, oh, these people are dal eaters and they are weak. This is what this, I'm not saying this is my perspective. I'm saying this is the propaganda that works on people.
We would think, it actually, when you think from an Ummadic perspective, the system of nation states completely changed the framework.
No. So is English the ideal language that we have? No, but we have it. Similarly, the nation state paradigm, at least in increased cooperation, like in the form of an EU or in the form of a NATO, it allows for you to maintain cultural identities, which is a big fear for people. People don't want to become Uyghurs. Uyghurs don't want to become Punjabis or Pathans or whatever. So those fears can be allayed in the sense that you can maintain it's the rigidity of the borders is one thing, which is a problem that I agree with, but the but the preservation of a certain culture in the region, that fear has been allayed. The big fear that, let's say if the Afghans become a totalizing power in the region, what is the fear in Pakistan? We will have to become like them. So people will say our Islam is not like the Islam of the Taliban. Again, our Islam, their Islam, let's not get into the debate, but I'm saying this is the argument that they would make.
It's valid.
So you can maintain a separate Islamic identity and still be cooperating with your brother. That's my point. Like English has been used as the lingua franca as a consequence of as a necessity or a need. It's a problem of need, right? Similarly, let's subvert the nation state. You use the benefit of it, which is the cultural preservation and the identity of those people, which people of Hyderabad might not say they're like the people of Karachi, for example, even though we did import a lot of them from there. But so you can maintain those cultural identities, but have increased cooperation, like with the EU, like you saw historically. Again, we saw the failures of the EU as well. We have models to give us a reference of what to do and what not to do. That's my point.
Yeah, so I have like many points to mention, and I hope I will not take this long. The first problem I have that we are not this much pragmatic. We are acting as being pragmatic, so we drop a lot of responsibilities from our shoulders and to hide in a very small responsibility that we can manipulate and deal with. So, and that's not pragmatic, actually. It's just like escaping with a nice way. So the second thing, once we talk about Ummah as Muslims, we don't talk about Muslims Ummah. We talk about Muhammad Ummah, Prophet Muhammad Ummah, which is every human being had been born since he became a prophet, till we all die. Yeah. Muslims and non-Muslims. That's the actual da'wah of Islam. If we liberate our... Yes. If we liberate our minds from the idea of us surviving to us surviving, that will be way better. That will be very different. How? Because we will stop talking about how Muslims should come back to be great, to how humanity can be better with the law of Islam, because what Islam came for. The mujahids in the past and history, they were going and talking to the people. We came to take you out from worshipping people, to take you to worship Allah. So it's liberty. Yes, to freedom and empowerment. So here we go for the third point I have, that us as Muslims, we failed to generate an actual da'wah for empowerment humanity, as humanity. Okay, we don't believe in borders, but did we do something about it? Did we talk to the people in those borders? How, hey guys, how to deal with the problems you have? So there is something called fiqh al-thughur, that once you have a lot of problems, a lot of fights, and they are overlapping and they are contributing with each other, like if you will fight those kafirs, you will hurt those Muslims, and you will fight if you fight for your rights, you will hurt your brothers and sisters in a different situation. So this fiqh al-thughur, we totally avoid to talk about it, and we act as we don't know how to deal with it. We don't know what to do. The global system and this propaganda, we just hide in it to drop the responsibilities from our problems. No one talks about how to liberate the Americans, for example. As Muslims, that's jihad. That's a huge thing. The Americans, they have a lot to do, and they need a lot of help, and they need a lot of work to be liberated as nation, not for our good, for their good as humans. Because they deserve to be free. They deserve to be free from the debts they have. They deserve to be free from the manipulating politics they have, the propaganda they are living in. As Muslims, that's one of our concerns, and it should be. But we didn't produce a manifesto for humanity that's, hey guys, that's Islam, that's what's called for. You can have a lot of Islams down there. Everyone will practice what he believes in, but the main fundamentals, manners, and values Islam is calling for is 1, 2, 3. Take it, do it your way if you are Muslim or if you are not. But Islam is the way for liberation. Islam is the way for actual freedom. So you can be Christian, you can be atheist in America, but you want to be free from the injustice you are living in. Islam is telling you the way. Islam is telling you how to empowerment your society, to give the control for the people, not for the state, without collapsing the state, and keep the power of the state without injustice, or like live on the injustice of the people, or by taking the right of people. Tughyan, like to live in harmony, that the society and the community have the power to keep itself, even if the state will disappear. And again, this power of the community is producing a powerful state that will be able to handle all the rules of the society and protect it and work with like organizing of it. So this balance, no one talks about it, even it's on our hand. It's front of our eyes. In Seerah, in Quran, in Hadith, in Sunnah, if you believe in it, everything.
Why?
It's
What do you think? Why?
That's a good
because
question,
because we have two challenges in this. The Islamic movements, they just do charity, as they have been made to be an NGO. I don't know, like it really hurts me. It caused me a headache. It's like, we will go to Africa and we will make da'wah for Islam, and then we will take lambs and water and nice clothes. Like, what? That's what? That's it? Teach them how to bring this and make them produce. You go there to feed them? That's it? What if you die? They will die. They will be born again. How many institutions, Islamic institutions, goes to Africa, make a water well, bring the people there meat and food and money and everything, and once one guy in Kuwait dies, a whole village in Africa will be born again. And the Christians will come and make them, the Catholic or the Protestant will come back.
Them about past only, don't tell them about how they can create the future.
Yeah,
Just we were like this.
We feed them and we tell them about Hazrat Khalid ibn Walid, for example. And then
how you can create new Khalid?
yes, no, we don't know. We don't do this here. You just eat, have a nice shower, take these clothes, take misk. Misk is very well in charity, and then they goes to sleep. Maximum we send them to Mecca. That's it, to make Hajj or Umrah. Wow, that's the ultimate da'wah we make.
I think
but do we liberate them? No, we don't.
No, I think because you used the term Islamic movement, so
So
that was a very.
So that's the first problem I have.
I have a question. I have a
Yeah,
question.
That was
I actually have a very serious question.
Oversimplification.
Islam as a liberating force.
Yeah.
Islam as a revolutionary liberating force. Is this something that we are reading into Islam due to the impacts of the 18th and 19th centuries, or is this something that we sincerely believe in a historical context is what Islam is?
For me, I totally believe in this, not in historically situation, but from originally from Quran.
And Islam is a
from the
Islam
Prophet's practices.
is Islam a revolutionary
No.
emancipatory force?
No. It's not
No.
revolutionary. It's
think-
not at all revolutionary.
But then how does the emancipation for Islam work?
Islam is about liberating, and liberating is if
I mean,
you have an
liberation-
injustice, or if you have a force that is forcing you with injustice, so you will have to be a revolutionary. But if you don't have this, if you are living in a country that you have rights and you can talk and politics system is working well and you can make the good with it, so just do it. That's the liberation. It's not about destroying. It's about building with what you have to build. So if you have to destroy something to build, do it. But if you don't have something to destroy and you have the chance to build, go ahead and build it. So Islam is about i'mar. I'mar. And so we came to worship and to i'mar. Ibadah and i'mar. Okay? I forget the word of i'mar in English. So, yes, construction or build. Yes, so you worship and build. That's what you need to do. You worship Allah and you build. Okay? And if you are not Muslim, so one of your rules, one of your duties is to build. Even if you are not Muslim, you build for the good of the people. Okay? So, I'm sorry, I lost.
Do we have an
Yeah.
illustrative example?
No, but you know, I'm not very clear on this. Yani,
Yeah.
I'm trying to understand this. First, Khan, you want to say something, please?
No, I just want to say that I do think that Islam is a revolutionary force. It has come to, revolutionize the way people look at society, how they live. Like, if you look at Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he changed everything from the way people believe about themselves.
Changes the complete world order. man.
Exactly, yeah. He flipped the whole world order on its head.
Islam,
That's yeah.
when you say Jal Haqq was Haqq al it comes to actually
And that is one of the reasons.
But before, but before he was doing da'wah,
The only difference, they are
Yes.
actually
Okay,
they are
what-
the same
why-
way what they're talking about.
No,
the way-
why were prophets sent?
So-
why were prophets sent?
So the prophets were sent to
No, no, I'm
establish.
asking Abu Bakr.
Yes.
Because if there is evil in the world,
yeah.
they are going to demolish those structures and they are going to replace that with the good structures.
Yes, exactly.
So
But
I
should
think-
we
I-
go with revolution?
Because I
or-
think sorry. Because you had a terrain and you had so many things said in a single sentence. When you said Islamic movement, even that was very oversimplification. Why? Turkey is a big example, man. The whole sector. Where did Erbakan come from? Where
Yeah.
was Turkey? Who was working?
Yeah.
Islamic movements, I think either you are understanding Islamic movement as something else or your reference point is not exactly Islamic movement. Please don't mix the Islamic movement actually is negation of what you refer to Islamic movements
I
practically
understand.
as.
Yeah.
You know, even you come from Egypt, Yani.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
had this session on, on Sufism.
Yeah.
Yes.
And,
So I was
and-
gonna add that, inshallah, after you finish
Please,
your point.
please,
Yeah.
please.
So
Let's
we've
start
been
concluding it.
So we've been criticizing Islamic movements a lot for they only do charity, they do khidmat, but this was an entire ecosystem that of dawah. The way Indonesia, Malaysia, India, all these places became Muslim was that whenever a Muslim empire would go, they would go with an entire ecosystem which would include
And people who didn't want to
education.
struggle, they would take the charity thing out of it and they say Islamic movements are doing charity.
Yeah, so it's an
No,
entire
I mean,
ecosystem.
okay.
It is charity.
But this is 1,000 years old though, guys. This is like 500 years old now.
Yeah,
We're
we
talking
can
about
add
right
on
now.
to it. We can add more things.
What I
in it.
was talking
Last
about,
century.
what I was talking about, that we are ended to here. That's the problem, that we came here now. And that's the situation. That's how they can manipulate us. I know that there is a lot of people
Bro,
that
I'm sorry because it's an interactive discussion, so I will keep cutting you. But
Yes, please.
But the thing is, I think the point where you started from, you negated that point when you were saying pragmatism and idealism by calling that, for the rights of Americans and all that. It seems as if, we are done with the Kashmiris, we are done with the Philistinis.
No, I didn't say
and
this.
We don't have blood shedding on the roads.
No, but
every day. We don't-
I think you're mischaracterizing what he's saying. He said that we didn't present an ideology, a totalizing ideology, like he referred to manifestos and
No,
like
actually,
communism.
you cannot go in isolation with
what he
the
was trying to
realities
say-
of the world.
like
in the realities
we
of
haven't
the world.
given.
He said we didn't have
manifesto,
we didn't have an academic framework
Like
of a
we-
totalizing ideology which can help liberate humanity wherever it is.
Because
Islam
the
is
second-
just a religion. He's saying we present Islam as just a religion.
The reason we are in a downfall is because we did not have that. If
Yeah,
we have
exactly.
had that,
Actually,
Allah would have given us
I think
iqtidariyan.
we should talk more about like the priorities, like where we are spending our resources.
This is the reason
Like,
of downfall itself.
We should do that. Like we should prioritize our spendings actually, because we spend too much on things that are not supposed to be spent on. Like obviously we have to build a narrative. We have to have a very overarching manifesto as well. So we are not spending on that. We like you said, like we're spending on feeding people and like sheltering people.
Sure.
Like obviously that's a secondary thing. Like what we have to do, we have to spread the ideas, and Islam by its nature is revolutionary. But it's the definition of revolution is different.
You guys keep saying that. What do you mean by that? Like Islam is a revolutionary religion.
Revolution. Yeah, the
In a
change.
transformative way.
Revolution. Okay, so in the religious so it's not conservative by nature, because conservatism is something that's anti-revolutionary. Is Islam conservative in its nature or revolutionary in its nature? That's a big problem.
Actually, we need to redefine the definition of revolution, because when we see the American Revolution, the French Revolution, the other revolutions, there were bloody revolutions. Islamic revolution is not like that. Like it came with obviously there was like a time period, and there was like different steps were taken. So it was step by step process. It was not like a bloody revolution. So obviously, like it's.
So the difference in our form of revolution is that
guys died?
it's less violent. Yeah.
Yeah. So my
Osama,
last
please
point.
can you, Osama, you start here.
If you want
No, after you.
Let Abu Bakr say, because then he
Okay,
leaves short
yeah.
and then you.
No, that's okay. So I will go back to the idea of fiqh al-thughur, because that's what took us to this. From my
Bro,
Yes.
don't use Arabic against us.
I'm sorry, no, I said the word and you seemed like you know it. I was like, to have multiple fights. Okay?
joking.
It's my phone, yeah. Yeah, you can leave. I'm sorry, yes. It wasn't a charge. But okay. So it's having a multiple fights. That's what is fiqh al-thughur. The fiqh of having a multiple fights. So having a multiple fights makes you think, and you have this general idea, you have this ideology about liberating everyone and making the better for everyone and liberating all the nations, even like all the ummahs. So with this, you go back to this scale we have been talking about. What's happening in Kashmir, what's happening in there, what's happening there. So you make the main ideology, you make
No.
the main idea.
So these
Yeah.
issues, is it not? I think this is just the different way of looking at the thing. I'm looking from the micro-foundational way. So micro-foundational way means that, you will look at the constituent parts, and this system itself will transform into a wholesome, a comprehensive ideals, which you need. Because
what are you
my
going-
problem, one second,
Yes, I'm sorry.
my problem with this idea is, when you say dominant ideology or the system or the kind of, did you say it should have a system for the West, or what did you say?
No, I
You said something
just
which-
ideas.
A whole comprehensive idea,
Manifestos.
comprehensive manifesto.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say
What
is,
we want.
what I'm trying to say is, if we are pragmatic, we know that one of the reasons for downfall is because we don't have those institutions, we don't have those structures, which would have transformed into these manifestos. If we have had that, we would not be in this situation at the first place. So it itself is not pragmatic to expect from somebody who is in such a sheer downfall with no structures. Look at our institutions, like the institutions. Do you have a Rand Corporation? Do you have somebody who's lobbying on that scale, who's
Do you have an APEC? Do you have a Harvard, a Yale, a Cambridge, and Oxford? Do you
So
have
I think you're expecting from this nation, this ummah, which is at this stage of their downfall, something that would come out when they would actually have grown like the West.
No, but he's saying that. No, but that's not what he's saying. He's saying that if we don't think like that, we won't do it.
Yeah.
If we don't think like that, we won't do it. I'm much more interested in this revolution business.
If it's not our target, we will never go there.
That's what he's saying.
No, being target is not. You said we don't come up with that manifesto.
No, but when we would present, listen, the assumption here is a materialist one, which is that the kind of infrastructure or the kind of structures that exploit humans, whether they be in the Muslim world or outside the Muslim world, are the same. So when we come up with solutions for our own problems, we have to make sure in the light of Islam that they're totalizing in the sense that they can be applied anywhere. And that would be an inspiration to the rest of the world as well, that you can be free and you can be economically free and not crushed under debt and riba and sood and you can be free from gambling and you can be free from so the idea is that the models we present for ourselves.
That's a self-feeding process. For example, Islamic banking, right?
What a revolution, guys! Islamic banking.
okay.
No, Islamic banking.
Anyways, Islam is a revolutionary ideology.
Yeah. So Islam, it is a revolutionizing force. It is a revolutionizing force. Why? Because it starts with the belief, and one of the reasons why it is such a holistic revolution is because it starts with your inner belief, and it goes all the way to the state, and it changes the way you eat. It changes the way you wash yourself after you use the toilet. It changes the way the society functions.
Indians love toilet stuff like this. Constantly like a lot of toilet stuff. Man.
It changes.
I've seen your food and I get it.
No, our food is better. Okay, that's a different discussion altogether.
I don't know if you will be part of this video.
No, it's fine. It changes the society, the economics, it changes the political system, and then it goes on to change the world in itself. Sure. And the main aim of this revolution...
So it's revolutionary because of its scope and scale.
Yeah, of its scope and scale, because it aims to change the world, and as in the words of Khalid bin Walid, that to liberate people from the slavery of religions and bring them into the boundlessness of Islam. And that's the basic idea.
So you're saying Islam's view of other religions and superstitions and ideological structures or government structures as exploitative structures. So then the alternative that Islam provides must be, well, not exploitative. Yeah. It has to be something that is, and the question that these guys were basically debating is that even though I don't think you've substantiated whether or not we are a revolutionary religion, because people in the Ummah scholarship also argues that it's not a revolutionary religion, and this is an opinion that we disagree on in the Ummah. The debate that they're having as well is basically this, that do we have a system that provides justice for people, social justice, economic justice, and do we have a model to show them? When we claim this revolution, if we claim that the model is 1400 years old, you immediately run into the problem of that this is all fantastical thinking.
No, I'm not negating the model. I'm saying it's not very realistic to expect.
Sure. But what I'm asking him is, do we have the model?
So, despite the fact that politically we are at our weakest, despite the fact that economically we're not doing so well, we don't have people are converting.
But are they converting to your revolutionary Islam, or are they converting to?
So I work in a Dawah organization. We give Dawah to tourists visiting Istanbul, and I've seen people just by listening to the azan, they start crying, and then
so the Islam, the religion, which is like other religions in the sense that it has religious worship and practices and norms and beliefs, and Islam, the totalizing revolutionary ideology. Yeah. Are people converting to this or this?
It's both. They cannot.
Sure. Yeah. You have guys. You have white guys who convert. You have white guys. Yeah, exactly. Is revolution a state of being? Is Islamic revolutionary thought a state of being? Is it our religion? Because you have white guys who convert and they join ISIS. Sure, you have these characters. But most people who convert to Islam, so for example, a majority of Western converts are women. They're converting to this. Yeah. They like the family structure, or they like the prayer. They like what the Quran has to say about. They have some existential question answered by the Quran or something. They like the philosophical, ideological consistency. most people are not converting to this. This is just us, yani generational Muslims, Arab, Indian, Uyghur.
So I'm sure you would.
Activist Muslims, and this is a transitionary state. No,
You would.
when and if you achieve said ideal Islamic state, would you still be a revolutionary religion? At that time, you would want to
Because it's a
conserve.
constant, ongoing process of.
So you're
of
constantly in a state of
This
revolution.
will take you back to the question of whether you have only defensive jihad or you also have a...
You do have offensive jihad. You do have,
That's
yeah.
what I'm saying.
So
You
we
do
are
have offensive
we are in a constant state of revolution, trying to build the ideal Islamic state.
To liberate humanity from the shackles of slavery by
Of
man-made
slavery,
systems.
of man-made systems, of superstition,
My claim, yeah.
of shirk. Right,
Yeah.
I
sure.
claim in this that Islam is very logical religion. In this, if you need a revolution, you use it for the phase of it.
Okay.
But if you
What is
have
the is it a loose threshold? When X mark is achieved, now revolution is required.
Yeah, when is it required?
Yeah. When is khuruj justified,
No,
Sheikh? When is khuruj? Is there a threshold point?
as an ex revolution?
He did khuruj himself.
Yeah, for sure. Yes. So I'm not sheikh at all.
No.
Yes, but revolution, like it's again with the rule of Islam. If you see the faults, you try to make the good with your hand. If you can't, with your mouth.
Yes.
If you can't, with your heart. But that's it. So the revolutionary part, if you see the faults, if you see the bad, if you see the evil. But what if the evil is not there? What if you are the government? What if you are the state?
Yes,
So
that's what I'm
you
saying.
will keep being revolutionary,
Like
or
Afghanistan-
there would
or
always
you will
be-
be like the prophet. You will be like the prophet, and you will send messages for the kings or the people around you. Hey, man, we heard that you have a lot of injustice in your country.
That is continuation of the revolution, right?
No, but Usama, one second.
So once the planet has been liberated, once the planet has been liberated, is it Mars or Jupiter? Which is the first target? You see, the problem with this kind of thinking, I think, is to view Islam as a religion of revolution is that you are in a constant state of flux. What have you seen with military movements in modern Muslim history? Is they are constantly splintering because this group is not on the haqq anymore. We have more haqq. We have more revolution. It's a self-defeating sort of cycle, don't you think? That you keep oning, and you keep trying to fix the problem, and you keep splintering off into separate groups and having more criticism and more scrutiny of the
That
ideology.
happens when they don't have a fiqh framework and they don't have,
Sure.
this rootedness in Islamic traditional
Tradition.
heritage, right?
Okay.
But when you actually have that and you have a framework and you're relying on qadis and ulama on, okay, when is the revolution non-violent, when is it political, when is it diplomatic, when is
And
it
when
violent?
it's violent, okay.
And when it's violent. All these things, they're supposed to be determined by fiqh. And when you just go around fiqh and you go, okay, I'm just going to take a gun and start doing revolution, that's not how Islam approaches revolution.
So
because there is a process.
the 19th and 20th century for Islam has been a failure then.
Not necessarily. It's been a success because despite all the efforts of globalist systems trying to suppress Islam, now we have a situation in Afghanistan that we have a situation in Bangladesh and Syria and Gaza
And
itself.
we can
stand
finally
by.
stop girls from going to school. Alhamdulillah.
I mean, that's not. I mean, they are going to schools. They are going to schools.
I'm just messing with you.
There's so much.
But this criteria itself is wrong. Like, why would you say Afghanistan only? As if only somebody has come into power is the metric of
No, but
success.
that's not the metric of success. The metric of success is
So
they
when
pushed
you
back.
say 19th, 20th century failure or success, I think there needs to be a different metrics.
So, like,
No,
for example, about the revolutionary and the diplomacy or the politics or building. In Egypt, we have the situation that it's either being a total pro-revolutionary or even military revolutionary or political. Yes. So, and the people there, they thought, sometimes good, sometimes bad, but they thought that why we need the revolutionary ideology to have a chair on the table, right?
Yes.
At there. Yeah. And then they had a chair on the table. Here, should they just stay revolutionary, or now we need to build?
Yes.
So yeah, you go from being more aggressively militant to you go into being more diplomatic and politically revolutionary.
So
because-
we are just
we are not
we agree
disagreeing
about
about
we're
we
not
agree-
disagreeing.
we are agreeing about
Yeah.
everything but the definitions.
Yeah,
so
the definitions.
So it
It's
doesn't
the
mean
limitation of the English language.
So
where
it's
different
not
words
something
can
to
be
keep
interpreted
going on.
in
Yes,
different
There
ways.
was one sentence we started. Is Islam revolutionary or not?
No.
By saying
Yes.
that it has a face, it means evolution is in there.
Yeah.
And when we were even saying it revolutionary, it did not mean it would keep in that state. Even after achieving its objective of what is expected of revolution.
Brother Khalid is very patient. He's been very patient.
Actually, I see we are between two sides. We are between the ahkam and hikmah. And both of them, they are important. But when we come to the hikmah, it's starting with building, because we need hikmah to build or to create the communities. Or actually, I will not say propaganda, but if we will make a dawah for Islam, hikmah is the best way, because we will show the others our hikmah. How? For example, our Prophet ﷺ, when he was, that woman come to him and she told him, I did zina, and he sent her many times. Maybe she will sit with herself and she did make tawbah and didn't came. He don't want to make just ahkam. So this is hikmah. But if we put someone in that position, let's make our Prophet away, or put someone, he just think about ahkam in that place, he will say, okay, let's make directly.
Let's kill the woman, yeah.
So this is important. Now we were talking with the others. They don't know anything about us. For example, one day I was volunteer with Brother Osama in the mosque, and we met someone. She was at mosque, and she asked us one question. She said, I like Islam, but I cannot sit with hijab in front of my husband. So
Right.
they don't know anything,
Right.
for example. So our propaganda is...
So you allowed her not to wear hijab in front of her husband. It's hikmah.
So I just taken an example because really
I know, I get it.
they don't know.
I get
They
it.
don't know. I just take it an example.
No, he is my kinsman. We are both Indian.
So this is very important. When we will talking politically, or we talking to make like a soft power for us, we should be at hikmah, not only ahkam. Of course, ahkam is important, but for example, when Allah make the alcohol haram, He say don't come to pray when you are drinking. He didn't give it directly. So this is hikmah. After that, it's
Slowly, yeah.
So we cannot go directly by ahkam. I say, okay, this is Islam, say this and that, and you should make a fasting in Ramadan, and you should do this and that.
Yes.
By time. Everything coming by time. But just make the people feel safe to you, trust you.
So in some regards, I think some things have fallen into our lap. For example, like you mentioned earlier as well, that the social and gender constructs that the Western society has created for itself, criticizing those, at least we have the principal consistency of we have family structure and so on and so forth. So some things have fallen into our lap. Allah has given us to them, and He's given them to us. We haven't had to do much for it. But when it comes to criticisms and attacks on, like the brother said, we have the hikmah for it, but we've never really displayed that. So we don't have good housing, we don't have good infrastructure, we don't have. So what would be the hikmah there? How would you sidestep that, for example?
So we've throughout Muslim history up until colonization, we've had the waqf system.
Yes.
And it was a very it was a very good system where people were provided housing if they didn't have a house, if they would provide food if they didn't have food, they would get medical services, they would have different opportunities, and there have been efforts to revive the system, especially in Turkey and in the Middle East, even in India. And there are places in India, for example, we have the Hakims, the Tibbi medicine people. They do medical ilaj for a very cheap price. So you have Hindus who would rather go there instead of go to a expensive modern hospital, and they would get their medicines or everything from there. So I feel like these institutions, because Islam is a very decentralized system. I disagree with this thought that Islam is a totalitarian state where it's everything. Yes. It's a very decentralized system, and it is these waqfs that are at the core of this Muslim society. So if
do you think it's a matter of time before we're able to present a society or a civilization with effective waqf systems? Do you think that's
I
what it
think
is?
that's already happening in Turkey. For example, there's many non-Muslims who come here and they just like they see how things are. They see that okay, if someone is homeless, they can find a place to stay. If someone is hungry, they can find food. No one would go hungry on the streets. So it's already happening in places like Turkey, in places like Iran. Surprisingly, you have these systems in place. Maybe they're not everywhere, but they're at least in the capitals or the main cities.
They're not as effective, or see, right?
Yeah. So it is happening, and it is a process. It's not something that's gonna happen overnight because we're still coming out of, we're still shedding the ashes of colonialism. So it's happening, and it's happening at a state level as well as individuals taking initiatives, NGOs coming into existence, Waqfs taking their own initiatives. So it's a process, and the process is more attractive to the non-Muslims. Like when they see that every
Right,
day,
that's a
average
very
people,
good point. It's a very good
Yeah.
point. Even though I met you guys do Dawah work and it's very good. I met a friend of mine, his wife, she's a convert, a Mexican convert, and she was just before, or I think right after converting, she came to Pakistan, and we were going out having dinner, whatever. And I just at one point I asked her, I said, "Do you know that what stage you're entering our civilization?" She's like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "We are at our 0 point right now. We've never been this bad." Because I think when people are converting, they don't realize that. And Paul Williams from Blogging Theology, he also said this, that you sort of exit your. For example, he is white and British. You sort of exit that and you become Muslim, brown, adjacent. So when people are entering our civilization by converting to Islam, do in the Dawah, this is for both of you brothers, you guys do the Dawah thing and volunteer in the masjid. Do the people who are converting have an idea of what they're converting into? Like, are they fully aware of what our civilization is like right now?
So, firstly, it's not black and white. But for some people, they just so there's two types of conversions that people who we say reversion because they go back to the fitrah. There's one who take a very logical step. They think, okay, Islam is the one that makes the most logical sense, is the most intellectual religion. It is consistent scientifically, so that's what appeals to them. For some people, it is more emotional. They hear the azan, they feel something in their heart. They see people praying, they get chills. They see the recitation of the Quran, and then that appeals to them. So it's both ways. For people who are logical, they want to know every detail about Islamic civilization. Okay, why are Muslim countries in such a mess? Why is there wars happening in the Middle East? Why is the Taliban banning women from entering schools, for example? So they do ask these questions, people who are coming from a logical perspective. And when we answer these questions, we explain to them, okay, there's for the Middle East, there's the Sykes-Picot Agreement that's at the root cause of most of the conflict. There's colonization, there is Zionism, there is this, that. And then, we give them answers. And when they feel satisfied, at least 80% satisfied, they say, okay, now I'm ready. Now I want to take the step. For people coming emotionally, they do come in emotionally and they don't care about politics. Like, mostly women. They don't care what's happening in the world. They're just like, okay, me, my Allah, that's it. That they
Which is fair enough.
Yeah,
Which is a fair way to live
Fair
their
enough.
life. Yeah.
And many of them enjoy these experiences. So, for example, you have many new Muslims who go to Egypt. And they have hilarious stories from Egypt. Like, they'll just they'll enjoy their time. They'll see all the weird things happening there. I have a very good friend who's a Brazilian revert. He lived 3 years in Egypt, and he has endless stories about Egyptian societies and Egyptians. And he contrasts that with Turkey. And they enjoy these things because they're looking from an outsider perspective, and they see how they're being welcomed into these societies. Yeah, and Pakistan is famous for
The other side. So by the way, this highlighted another fascinating issue. I find that a lot of people in the conversation about the Ummah and the like with the Ummatics and these kinds of, we end up making the Muslim civilization look like a monolith. We are 2 billion and we are all very different. I think a new approach to the Ummatic approach should be a celebration of our diversity and how different our societies are, with the same guiding principles at their core. Is that something they realize, the converts? Do they know how different we are?
Of course they know, and this is something that I personally make clear of it because I listen a lot to Sheikh Abdul Hakim Murad. He talks about
Great
how
man, yeah.
Islam does not have its own culture. It integrates into all the local cultures and purifies it from polytheism. So when I say that you know a British convert can go to England and he can pray in a Gothic architecture style mosque, and he can wear an English suit and still be a Muslim.
Yes.
You know, so these things, they really make a lot of impact on new Muslims. They don't have to wear shalwar kameez and walk around Birmingham. You know, they don't have to eat biryani every Friday.
Even though they'll feel at home. Yeah.
Yeah, even yeah, in Birmingham they would probably feel at home. Yeah.
in Egypt.
Oh yeah,
They eat, what's that thing? Kosheri.
kosheri.
Yeah,
Kosheri.
Kosheri.
So these things, they do have an impact, and many new Muslims, for some reason, they are fascinated about Muslim history. They want to know more about Mughals. They want to know more about Ottomans. They want to know about what happened in this century, and they see and realize the weaknesses and inconsistencies within Muslim societies.
And Khalid is for the, to impress the